Good afternoon, everybody. It's a great privilege for me to be asked by Maria to say a little bit about what L'Arche has done for the different churches in Belfast. And when I was trying to think about what I might say, the first thing that sprang to my mind was the way that this community, the L'Arche community, has enabled people to transcend all those different barriers that exist between us. And Maria has already referred to a man called Robin Harris. And about maybe 14, 15 years ago, Robin Harris knocked on my door when I was working in another church in the city. And he said, "You don't know who I am, but I've heard that you have an interest in the L'Arche community." And he said, "I'd like to invite you to meet with a few people who are going to pray for this community to become a reality in Belfast." And for those of you who knew Robin, he was a very persuasive man with a very beautiful spirit. And so I found myself going along to this meeting in his house, where again we were warmly welcomed. And within a short time, this seeding group began, which began to pray. And I remember, as somebody who grew up in the south of Ireland and had just come to live in Belfast in 1996, finding it a very strange place indeed to live. But at that time, it struck me that L'Arche was a very prophetic organisation, because we used to meet at that time to pray in a non-denominational church called City Church. And among those who had gathered to pray, we had a Catholic priest and a nun, and myself, and there were lay people from the Catholic tradition, from the Presbyterian tradition, from Methodist and Presbyterian traditions. And we were always led in our prayers by a Presbyterian lady who used to light a candle to begin our prayers. So all these stereotypes that we had about each other's denominations were overcome. And at the very heart of this was this vision where adults with learning disabilities would form a community which would invite others to be at the very heart of that. And it struck me as being a very powerful and a very moving thing to be a part of. And the second vitally important thing that I believe L'Arche Belfast has brought to our churches is humanity and fun. Because in the various churches that I have served in, it has always been a privilege for me to welcome some of these folks who are behind me and others to come and to share in our services. And churches, by their very nature, tend to be quite serious places. And I would be among those who take it all very seriously. And whenever my friends behind me come to visit, you always notice an immediate lightening of the mood. So when things don't go exactly according to plan, or things aren't quite as smooth as we would like them normally to be, it's no big deal. And I think L'Arche Belfast bring that great warmth, that great sense of fun, and a real lightening of the spirit. And church people, again, as I say, we tend to be a pretty reserved lot, but I've very often noticed whenever L'Arche communities come to visit the churches where I've served, I've noticed people doing a couple of things. And it's happened here today. I've noticed people wiping away tears. And I've also noticed people completely bent double with laughter. And I think that's a really tremendous gift that L'Arche communities bring to our churches. And the last thing I wanted to mention in terms of a gift that L'Arche has brought to the churches is that tremendous gift that's the very heart of all L'Arche communities, and that's the gift of community. And last Sunday, through the good endeavours of our friends from Root Soup, which we're going to hear a little bit about, I think, later, is that right? Through the good endeavours of Root Soup, the church where I work, which is not far from here, 94 people from our church sat down at lovely tables like these to have a wonderful lunch of soup and bread. Soup and bread. Vegetables had been grown on the allotment, which Scott has just been talking about. And to me, it was just a really lovely thing to look around the room and to see young and old, to see families and single people all gathered around on a Sunday afternoon to have lunch together. And to me, that was possible because of our friends here behind us who had come earlier in the month to tell us a little bit about the work that they do. And it was just so wonderful to see everybody having a really lovely time together, brought together by these folks who are here with us today. And so, as Large Belfast celebrates 10 years, my prayer is that God would continue to bless and to use this community to build and to demonstrate His kingdom here on earth, and may it continue to grow and to flourish.
Do you think Julia looked beautiful today? New tie, new shoes, new jewellery. See, Julia has been asked, we have been asked to speak to many young students throughout our province, our country, Northern Ireland. And a number of years ago, in a school in Coleraine, the children, the young adults, when they were leaving school, were asked to say who of all of the people throughout their education, do you want to stand with me? I'm afraid David, or not David Paul, I'm holding him for dear life. Who of all of the people throughout their education most inspired them? And unanimously they chose Gillian. So she was the guest of honour at their graduation. And the message that they received from Gillian is that each one of us, exactly as we are beautiful. Because Gillian, what do you do when you look at yourself in the mirror?
Beautiful, good.
So we would just defy anybody down here to say, who, if they had no clothes on, would twirl in front of the mirror and say, beautiful, gorgeous. Anybody down there? Because if you do, oh, come on up, Miho. My brother. Come on up and sing your Gillian. Anyway, so the song we're going to teach you is Gillian's song, and it's beautiful. And we have sung this throughout the church. Places in Belfast that had long, big, long, tall walls that divide them. So Marta and Ward, Franz and Julia, Thomas, Sharon, Jack and Gillian, who aren't here, and myself, we have been meeting every Monday morning and Wednesday morning in a small house of prayer, just on one of the peace lines. And we have been meeting there to pray from 7 in the morning to 8 every morning, to look down on our city and to pray for the healing of our city. And the person who keeps us coming Monday and Wednesday, or every Monday morning, is Thomas. Our Thomas today gets up every Monday morning. At what time, Thomas? What time do you get up? What time? 6 o'clock. Get yourself dressed Franz and Julia come and get you, and Sharon. And you drive from south, fast as you can, in a very big hurry, so we can be in North Belfast for 7 o'clock. And I can tell you, on the dark winter mornings, it's the last thing in the world that we want to do. But we have been praying faithfully. Gillian blowing kisses from her bed, obviously. And Thomas getting dressed. And I would say, Marta and Ward, I don't know if I speak for you, but I know that if Thomas were not praying with us, it would be much more difficult. Because what Thomas brings is a way of praying that isn't about any of our traditions or any of our habits. It's just a way of praying that is about being human together. So there is another group that is very important in our community. It's called In Other Words. And In Other Words is a small group that has started about a year, how long ago? 9 months ago or thereabouts. And it started because a young woman called Makiko came to us to live with us from Japan. And Makiko came and she found it difficult enough to settle. And one day I met her in my office and said, if you could do anything that would tell the world who you were and would make a difference in L'Arche, what would you be doing? And she said, I would be doing art, and I would be doing music, and I would be doing it differently. So we said to her, Scott and I talked about it, and we said, start an art group on a Monday afternoon with Gillian. And so an art group started. Julia came very shortly afterwards, an artist and a musician. Emer came, somebody who's a speech therapist and knows Makaton. And so we decided to call our group In Other Words.
We now make soup one day a week in a homeless shelter in East Belfast with people who have learning disabilities. Joe comes, Matthew comes. We've also been placed, a couple people have been placed there alongside people who are homeless, living in a homeless hospital. And a lot of people kind of questioned whether that was a good combination, people who are homeless working alongside vulnerable adults. And it's been an amazing transformation in, I think, in everyone.